one person blatantly told me that they didn't like the police at all, which I thought was interesting. I'm not sure why, but I wanted to figure out what you would say to someone that told you that they don't like the police at all. That was one thing. And the other thing had to do with specifically this county. Someone said that there's a lot of corruption in this area, and I don't know much about that. So those are two questions I wanted to ask you about.
Well, in law enforcement or in corrections, and I call it the jail, we call it corrections, that, you know, that type of business doesn't usually befriend people. It is the type of thing that we're on the enforcement end, we're enforcing traffic violations as well as criminal violations. So you can imagine that if anybody is on the brunt end of that enforcement, then, or the receiving end of it, I should say, then it's it can be an unpleasant experience. I make sure that my officers are trained so that we treat everybody like I'd want to be treated, the golden rule. But and so even though you might be on the enforcement end of the sheriff's department, we should treat you like a human being and with respect, unless you turn the tables on us. For example, you start fighting with us, you're disrespectful, or what, you know, I mean, somehow you're resisting and so on. Obviously, we would expect the police to win those situations and be in control.
That's sort of a Hobbes view of society.
Yeah. So it's, you know, that particular person, it's unfortunate. I mean, I always think it's unfortunate when people don't like the police, because the police are here to serve and protect. And there's no doubt in America that some of the bad apples in police work have tainted the respect and the respect for authority that police once had. But leaders, I believe, like myself, who can put integrity and confidence back into that, then that's important, and that's why having an elected sheriff is important. And that goes right back into your second concern, and that is with corruption. Corruption, how? Is it that we have officers who are selling drugs or taking money? I mean, you know, there's all kinds of...
I don't think it was limited to the sheriff's department. I think it was like the whole political spectrum in the county, as well as like the area, including even Chicago. I've heard of Chicago from overseas as having a lot of corruption.
Well, Chicago is 150 miles from here, or 100 miles from here, so it's you know, this isn't considered Chicago. And the beauty of having an elected sheriff is he can be unelected. You go to the polls
at the end of
at the
4
next
years.
at the end of 4 years, and you get somebody else in. So that sheriff is held accountable. He doesn't answer to anybody else but to the people. And he doesn't have a boss, one boss that he answers to. His boss are we the people. So that's the important thing about that. But if there's accusations, if there's improprieties, all that can be brought up at a local level. And in my administration, I have the philosophy of being transparent, not only with complaints and allegations, but also with finances and how things are dealt with on a budgetary level. And in county government, we have the county commissioners, which is the legislative body, and then we have the county council, which is the fiscal body. So the sheriff, even though he answers to no one, he needs to cooperate with those bodies of people to work out budgets and any laws that are going to be created on a local level. So those are the types of things that help protect local citizens, is that everybody is elected locally and they have local accountability. So, you know, again, when you know, any police department is open to allegations of corruption and so on, but we need to bring that out in the open and say, you know, what is the issue here? Most of the time, what you see, especially in in this as being a political process of a sheriff being elected is you have people who weren't for me
Yeah.
to being elected, and they would suggest that my Christian beliefs, that I'm cramming that down everybody else's throat, which is not true. They would suggest that I have an agenda of keeping my people held accountable. Well, what's wrong with that? We want police officers to be held accountable to their actions.
What he meant by that.
And so if a police officer, for example, commits adultery, do we not want our police officers to be held to a higher standard, to make sure that we have a police force and police officers who aren't subject to being blackmailed and to being put in a situation where there would be corruption? So, I consider...
I was wondering where adultery came into that.
I consider myself as I raise the bar. I keep the standards high with my people and my employees. Well, many people, typically liberal thinking, think that that's too heavy-handed. Well, I disagree. So they would view that as corruption.
Have you seen a change since you've been elected sheriff and the way things happen around here?
Oh, absolutely. We have, not only has there been an increase in morale, but I empower my people. I'm not a micromanager, someone who is an armchair administrator. I want to make sure that I empower my people to do what needs to be done. For example, we're working on reducing crime and getting some really bad people off the streets. Those are things that I empower my people to get a job done. And as a CEO, a chief executive officer of this department, we have over 200 employees, I want to make sure that they have the resources to get that job done. And I cut through the bureaucratic red tape to try to get it done. And so that's one of my jobs, I believe, as sheriff, is to cut through that bureaucratic red tape, make sure my people are empowered. We all have policies and procedures we have to operate within,
Yeah.
of course the law that we operate within. And I'm not suggesting that we don't make mistakes or that we're perfect in every way. To the contrary, I make mistakes daily, but it's the type of thing that we need to keep the bar high. In other words, raise the standard and expect good things out of our employees. And I take care of disciplining or take corrective action on those employees that fall outside those parameters.
And so you keep yourself to perhaps a higher standard than that of
Oh,
your
absolutely.
employees?
I don't
lead by example.
I don't. Yes, I lead by example, and I don't expect. I'm not going to expect my employees to do something that I wouldn't do, or that I wouldn't be held accountable for as well. And of course, as a sheriff, I'm very much in the spotlight, and the press and others would just jump at that if I stumbled or if I...
There was something recent in Indiana. An elected official got taken down from his seat in Indianapolis or something.
Yeah, that was the Secretary of State.
Does that have anything to do with foreign affairs?
Not in Indiana.
Yeah, it sounded...
It's not. I don't believe so, anyways, unless it's business related. But he is in charge of the elections in Indiana, and he was recently convicted of some felonies, which that's not good. I mean, that's a blight
Yeah.
on that office, and to this date, they're still
Figuring it out.
wrangling and figured out how exactly all that's going to pan out.